Hi, it's me, Jazzy. I'm back with another tech-related video, and today I'm taking a look at a digital microscope. And yes, I know we've looked at a few, but this is a digital microscope with a difference. How about a 3D digital microscope? Well, this is new from Tomlov. It's the TM3k-3D, which is a 3D digital microscope with a 10.1 inch IPS panel, a flex arm stand, and the ability to run 3 screens at once. So massive thanks to Tomlov for sending this over for me to review. Now I'm really looking forward to getting into this. It's a really unique looking digital microscope. Now we've seen before with the flex arm system from Tomlov, it makes it a really useful microscope that you can swing in and out and maneuver really easily over your bench. Now this is really unique in that it's a 3K microscope with 3D. Now you've got 2 interchangeable lenses you can use. I'm so intrigued by this. Let's get it over on the bench and see what we get in the box. So here we go, let's have a look. Now I'm intrigued by this 3D digital microscope. Right, what do we get? Right, so we've got a user manual. Okay, lots in here. As usual with Tomlov, you've got lots of nice colour photos, and it's very descriptive, going into every detail of how to set it up, how to use it. So that's going to be very handy. Well worth taking a look through that before setting up. What do we get in here? We've got a cleaning cloth. We have the screen. This is a big screen. This is a 10.1 inch IPS ultra clear display. Now I'm really intrigued by these lenses. You've got 2 lenses with this. So you've got a W lens, which is a wide angle lens for a fuller view, which is great for like looking at coins and jewellery and stuff. And then you've got an L long distance lens, which is good for soldering and PCB inspection, which is the one that's on there. And these are apparently magnetic. They are, look at that. Just magnets on and off. And you can switch between 3D and 2D. I'm intrigued with this. I can't wait to see how they've pulled this off. 3D on a digital microscope. Interesting. Here's the other lens as well. There's the W lens and there's the L lens, so you can switch between the 2. So obviously we're going to give them both a good try. As I always say, it wouldn't be a thorough test if we didn't test it thoroughly, would it? Right, what else have we got in here? We've got a USB A to C cable, and we've got a HDMI. Looks like HDMI to mini HDMI. Okay. Right, we've got a power adapter here. And we have a UK power adapter. It's one of these extendable jobbies. Okay. And it is a 5 volt 2 amp output, this one. So we're going to need that. We've got a remote control. You know I love a remote control. This is nice. Again, proper buttons. We've got one more piece in here, which I think is the microscope holder. It is. All right, feels very nice. Nice and smooth. What have we got in the bottom? We have got all the parts for the clamp for the flex arm stand. We saw in my previous video how the flex arm stand goes together, and it goes together really quickly and easily. Here's our flex arm stand. It's fantastic. It's really robust. It's really solid. I noted that in the last video. This is the improved version, apparently, for 2025. I can see already there's some slight differences from the previous one. So we'll get this all set up in a moment. And then in the bottom here, we've got a soldering mat. This is a 17.7 inch by 11.8 inch heat-resistant silicon mat that can apparently withstand up to 932 degrees. So, as I have plenty of room today, there we go. Let's pop that on there. That's very nice. So you've got some little compartments there for all your bits and bobs. So what we need to do now is assemble the flex arm stand. Okay, so we just unmagnet the lens for a minute so we can slot this in. Let's just make sure these are undone. It's a lovely big screen on this. Nice. Now, on the back of the microscope, you will see gooseneck lights. Oh, these are nice. Okay, you know how I always moan about gooseneck lights? Actually, I will say, and they feel like they're gonna stay where I put them. So with your I/O here, you've got your mini HDMI, micro SD card slot, which is pre-installed with a 64 gig SD card, nice inclusion, USB-C for power, and there's your lighting control for your gooseneck lights. Nice and simple, just how I like it. So USB-C goes in here, and your USB-A goes into your power brick there. Mini HDMI goes in here. So I've only got 2 cables going into this, which makes it nice and easy to manage. There we go, that's nice and neat now. So we're all hooked up, ready to go. Obviously we need to put our magnetic lens back on. I'm going to start off with lens L. We're going to test them both. I've got a peel here that's got to come off. 3D, here we go, Tomlov. Right, so let's pop a board under so we can have a look. Focus that in. Here we go. Oh, look at that. That is nice. Just adjust the lights to get the right. Look at that. That looks fantastic. This is a 10.1 inch IPS screen. Having the extra screen size does make a difference. It's a really clear image. You can see, look, all the dust and the hairs and the rubbish on this old motherboard. Really nice and clear though for seeing part numbers and stuff. And these little surface mount components, because you know how tiny they are, we've looked at those before. You've got on the remote, you've got your digital zoom, which I believe is a 4x digital zoom on this one. So that's on 4x digital zoom, and look, that's absolutely amazing. You've got no trouble reading part numbers and stuff on here, have you? Of course, because you've got this flex arm stand, you can just move this up. Look, you can give yourself masses of clearance to work underneath this. You could go higher still. Yeah, look, you could see how high I've got that amount of working height you've got there. And you've got a really nice wide angle view of the board at that height. So, of course, you've got your image capture on your remote control, and you've got video record as well, so you can see there you're recording your video footage. So if you want to make a note of part numbers and stuff, you can do that. I can see straight away how dirty and dusty this board is, but you've got no trouble seeing everything on there. And this screen, they describe this as a ultra clear IPS display. I think they've got that right. It definitely does look very clear. It's an absolutely fantastic image. Now, this is in the 2D mode. Now, what we're all here for is this 3D mode. Now, I'm intrigued by this because you've got this little thumb wheel here that takes it from 2D to 3D. Now, what is the 3D? What I do know is you need to get your board slightly further back when you're in 3D mode. So let's do that. And then we need to refocus in. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, take a look at that, would you? That's awesome. Oh, goodness me. Oh, look, you can get right on in. Look how far these connectors are off the motherboard. That's insane. It gives you a whole new perspective. Look at the CMOS battery. You can see how proud stuff is, like the wires and the connectors and stuff. Even these ICs, you can see how raised up they are off the board. And you can rotate the lens. Oh, look at this. Getting a 360-degree view of the board. Look at that. I've looked at a lot of digital microscopes on the channel, and I've got to say I've never seen anything quite like this. This is really unusual, really intriguing. That's fantastic. Can you still use the zoom? You can still use the zoom in 3D mode. Look at that. That's incredible, isn't it? If you're wanting to check out solder joints and stuff, and knowing how small some of these components are, look how much they're standing up off the board. That's an incredible perspective on those. Now you can see how far back that is. So this component we're looking at is actually here. So you can see how far back the board is. So you wouldn't really want to use that mode for soldering or anything because you'd be working around the back of it. But this would be great for inspecting your PCB for stuff. And of course, I guess what you could do, you rotate this right around, could you do it the other way and have bring the board to the front? Yeah, you could. Oh yeah, you could do that. What a really unusual perspective. Look at that. It's like the opening credits to Star Wars a little bit, isn't it? Let me grab my other test motherboard that I tend to use. Oh wow, look at that. Oh, look at that inductor. That's so cool. Because normally you're seeing everything top down, aren't you, with the digital microscope? That's generally what you expect to see. You can see all the markings. I can already see where this 3D view would come in handy. When you're looking at things like electrolytics and you're struggling to see the value or the voltage of an electrolytic because there's something in the way and you can't quite get your face in there, that could be so useful. It's a completely different perspective on looking at the board. You could get some really cool shots from this. Let's have a look at the CPU socket. So if you were doing some repairs on your CPU socket, repairing your pins and stuff. So normally you're looking top down and you've got a pretty good view on them top down to do repairs and stuff. But you can see how this would be an advantage. Looking at an angle, I can see I've got a couple of damaged pins there that need some attention. You can see the depth of all these things that you don't normally get to see. You can really see in great detail these components, and you can see them from angles that you wouldn't normally get to see. It's almost like you want to just grab random PCBs that you've got hanging around just so you can explore them in a new way. The inductor looks so cool. And this is lens L I've got in at the moment. Lens L is the one that's recommended for soldering and PCB inspection. We've also got lens W, which is a wide angle lens, which is this one here. Let's look at the difference. I'm intrigued, what's the difference between lens W and lens L? So how much of a wider angle does that give us? That's our view at the moment, which is in 3D. So remove the little protective cap there. So what we'll do is we'll leave it in 3D. We'll put this one in 3D and pop this one on. We need to obviously refocus. Okay. Oh yeah, okay, so you've got a wider field of view. So if you want to see more of your PCB, then you can do that with lens W. Now we're in 3D mode here. And again, we can move it around. That is most unusual. It's like you're right on in there with the components. So just to give you an idea of the difference in 2D mode with the two different lenses. So this is lens W that we're just looking at. And this is the slightly wider angle lens. So I'll just pop this out and I'll pop in lens L in 2D mode. And we need to refocus. Let's just bring that back in. And you can see we are in that little bit much closer, aren't we? So lens W gives you that wider angle and lens L gets you that little bit closer in, depending on what you want to look at. It's really intriguing, these lenses. There's clearly a system of mirrors and stuff going on. There's a lot going on in there. You can see when you're moving that, you're rotating that little mirror. Really very clever. So let's have a look at a different board. That looks really clear. You'd have no problems with your color bands, would you there? Even I can see that. Now let's go to 3D mode on this board. And of course we can move around the board just by moving the lens. So you can see if you want to look the values of capacitors and stuff. This is not a view that you would get with a regular digital microscope. You can really clearly see pretty much everything. Now that would be a fairly hard to read part number normally, wouldn't it? but we can get right on in there and see that. See, I am forever struggling to read values on capacitors that are in hard to reach places like this one is. You can get in all the crevices. That is so clear, the information that you can read that's on the side of this component here. Sometimes I find myself trying to get my head inside something just to see the value of a capacitor. It's a whole new way of looking at your boards. Fantastic. I'm really impressed with the image quality. I'm absolutely blown away by this 3D because I had no idea how that was going to work. Now, another feature I love on here, it's got a split screen mode. So a long press on the OK button will take you into split screen mode. There we go. So you can see you've got your full scale image here and your zoomed in image here, which is currently at 2x zoom, but you can zoom that right up to 4x if you want to have a look at something really close, and it shows you there the segment that you've zoomed in on. That is very clever. Long press on the OK takes you back to camera mode. So obviously you've got your flex arm stand, which I'm a massive fan of, and of course on the back you've got your adjustment here, so you can roll it up and down, and that's quite a nice smooth movement on this one. One thing I do like about this particular model is where the connectors are, there's plenty of room to be able to swivel your microscope without this impacting on the stand, because I've had that problem with some models that when you swivel, your connectors get in the way of this. This gives you plenty of room, so it's not even a problem on this. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the menu on this, because there's a lot of features in this. So you've got your menu bar here. So the first one is your playback. So you can go in here and you can take a look at all the images that you've captured. So these are all the still images from the microscope that I've taken while we've been playing around with it. Menu again to come back out of that. Now you've got all your display settings here. So you've got auto exposure here. It's currently set to auto, but you can also set it to lock to the current exposure. You can change your image brightness, your white balance, and your effect mode. You have to press OK, and then you can use the left and right to go up and down. It's a little bit counterintuitive. So you go to effect, press OK, and then that one goes red. So that's the parameter you're changing. So now if I go right, it'll go right. Okay. And that will change it to black and white. So if I press OK again, changes the image to black and white. There you go. So if I press OK again, that goes back to red. There we go. Then I can go to negative if I want a negative image. You get that cool negative effect on your image. And to go back, you've got to press OK again, and then go back to color. So you can do that. It's a little bit clunky in the menu system. That's the only thing I will say. If you go down again, you've got WDR, which is wide dynamic range, which is if you're using the microscope in a darker environment, it will give you better quality images. But if you're focusing your gooseneck lights in properly, you shouldn't have a problem. They give you enough light for looking at most things. So going on to page 2 of 2, you've got contrast, saturation and sharpness. You can mirror your image. Again, it would be one thing I would like to see is some sort of up and down as well as a left and right. It just makes it a little bit more intuitive for going through the menus. And there we go. So you have got a mirror. So press OK. So that's on off at the moment. So if we go to on, you watch the image will flip. There you go, so it flips the opposite way around. And again, turn that back to off. There you go, flips it back to normal. And you can do the same thing if you go to vertical flip. You can flip your image vertically if you want to have it the other way up. If you were looking at some part numbers or something that were upside down on the board, then you can just change that, press OK again, and go back to off. You can also change your frequency from 50 to 60 Hertz as well. We've looked at image settings. You've also got your settings menu. Now, there's loads in here, so you can change your shortcut key, which is the OK key, and you can program that to either do photo, video, split, or freeze. You can change the resolution of your photos. It's set on 38 megapixels at the moment, but if you wanted a smaller file size for whatever reason, you can change it down to 4 megapixels. Video is set to 3K at 30 frames per second. It'll also do 1080p at 60 frames per second if you prefer. You can change your LCD brightness. You can change the auto off timer from anywhere between off and 5 minutes. Change your language, your date and your time. Return the scope to default settings if you really have messed it up, and you can format your SD card. And then you've got your crosshair settings. If you want to use crosshairs, you've got a whole array of different coloured crosshairs that you can use. So that's your menu. You can access that from the remote, or you can just use the buttons on the front of the microscope here. So the great thing is it does go into great detail in the manual about the menu settings and how to use them, how to hook up to HDMI and how to hook up to your PC and the different modes. There's a whole load of information in here, so it's well worth having a good read through this before you even set it up. It's got everything you could need to know in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hook it up to the laptop here. So to hook it up to your laptop or your PC, all you do is take the USB-A out of your power brick and you plug that into your laptop or your PC, and your microscope will be powered from the PC. Now you've got two different modes initially. So you've got MSDC, which is mass storage mode, which you're in now, and you can see on my laptop it opens a folder so you can view all your files and your videos. So your microscope opens as a USB drive, which is opened as drive G on here, and you've got a folder of JPEGs and a folder of videos. So you can see here, if we go into the images, let's do view as large icons so we can see what we've got. Look at this. This is all the images that we've captured from the microscope while we were testing it. So you can see this is the one we looked at just now when we were doing the split screen mode. So if we open that up, we can go full screen on this. So you can see that's a pretty decent resolution. If you look down here, you see that's 8192 by 4608 pixels. That's an 8.6 megabyte sized image. So you can see these are good enough quality that you could actually zoom in to the image. If you wanted to have a look at some specific detail, you can zoom right in because they're high enough quality that you can zoom right in. Look, you can see actually the print detail on that electrolytic. You can get right in on there. Let's have a look at one of the 3D images. Look at that inductor. That looks absolutely amazing. So you couldn't get that sort of image angle on a normal microscope. That actually looks so cool. You could see the detail. You can see there's a little hair or something on that PCB because it's quite an old board. This is another one here showing the surface mount components and how they stand out from the board. And you can see this one is really in focus. I quite like, from an artistic point of view, I quite like the soft focus at the back of the shot there because it draws your eye right into that component. And you can see this is a top-down view using the 2D on the Dell motherboard. There's a really clear image. Again, you could zoom in. There's plenty of resolution on these images. Now, you've also got, if I go back up one, you've got the video folder as well, so you can go in and look at your videos. I always like to view large icons and I can see what I'm looking at here. You can see you've got some video footage that we did while we were messing about earlier. We can go full screen on that. There you go, and that's a great reference if you want to remember something about a board that you inspected or something that you want to come back to. You think you suspect a solder joint, or this component needs replacing, or what was the part number of this. So that's one way that you can use it. Now, you can see here it's saying we can't find your camera. Now the reason for that is we are still in mass storage mode. So you can see here it says press OK to switch to UVC, which takes it into live camera mode. So if I press that, you can hear the laptop making various noises, and we now have the image on both screens. How cool is that? So I'm just using the Windows camera app because I'm on a Windows machine. You can use it with a Mac as well, and it gives you details in the instruction manual how to hook up to your Mac. I don't have one here, unfortunately, to try it with. So this is in 3D mode at the moment. So you can see having that hooked up to your PC gives you a good size image. And of course, if you're using your Windows camera app, you can take still shots as you would normally, or you can take videos directly on your PC, so that's saved straight on your PC. So you can either record video directly on your PC, or you can record video on the microscope and then transfer it across using the mass storage mode. Of course, when you're recording video on your microscope, you're getting that 3K 30 frames per second, so you're going to get some awesome quality video footage off of that. And don't forget, you can also transfer your images over just by removing the SD card from your microscope and plugging it into your SD card reader if you want to do that. And then if I just turn the lens, we can move around the board. We've got a 360-degree view. It gives you whole new worlds to explore, lots of new different angles that you didn't know you could see. Now, if you think this is good, we can go one better and also hook it up to a HDMI display. So as you can see, we've now got 3 screens running. So we're still hooked up to the PC as before, but I'm also connected via HDMI to this large TV. This is a 42-inch and is the biggest size I can fit on my bench. And as you can see, I'm running out of room. Anyway, the picture on this is absolutely fantastic. You can see on the big screen, you get all the detail. Look at all these. You can see there's some work been done on this board over here. You can see all the lettering quite nicely on the chips. And this is in 3D mode. And of course, we can pan around. And it gives you a whole new world to explore because you don't normally get to see things from this angle. Normally, you're looking straight down with a digital microscope. And then as you move around, you just refocus it to bring it in. You can see, look at the dirt and the dust and general stuff that's on this old board that's been in my drawer kicking about. Look at that inductor though. How cool is that? Move that into the middle. That looks amazing on the big screen. Of course, on your PC, you can still capture images. There you go. So you can capture video on your PC as well. So while you're moving around your board, having a look, you can make yourself a video. Like you want to check your electrolytics. Are the tops bulging? The further down you bring the microscope to the board, the more apparent the 3D mode is. You're now right down in there with these really dusty capacitors. But if you want to get in somewhere really tricky to see part numbers, like you can't do much better than that. And we can almost see right through that inductor. We can certainly see it's got some fluff on it there that one of my fans is blowing. Look, you can see daylight through there. Taking a look at this logic board here, you'd have no trouble identifying these ICs, would you? And you can see all the part numbers. Look on these capacitors and stuff. Even these ones that are hiding, that little yellow one there. We can get a sneaky peek down in that gap and see that's N33 right there. The detail you can see on the 3D images. You can just move around your board. When you get to the edge, you're going at some crazy angles there. Go around the other way. You can explore your PCBs in a way that you never could before. There you go, and back in 2D mode. You're not really sacrificing any image quality in 2D mode. You could quite happily use this in 2D mode all the time, and I don't think you'd be disappointed with the image quality. Only thing I would note is that when you're in 2D mode, you're not right underneath the microscope. You're slightly further out than you think you would be. I'm wondering if for soldering that could be an advantage, that if you're even in 2D mode, you're not directly underneath the microscope. You're slightly further in front of it. This is what we're looking at here, these resistors, but they're not directly under the lens. They're slightly further forward. I'm wondering if that may be an advantage if you're soldering or working on this part of the board. You're not directly under the microscope. So again, that could be a factor of flux and fumes not going into your microscope lens, which I know we've talked about a little bit in the comments section before. And you can even use this method of turning the lens around because it's magnetic. You can still use that in 2D mode, and you can have a wander around your board like this. I think that's quite cool. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a lot of features, this microscope. So what is it I like about this microscope? Well, I love the 10.1-inch screen. It gives a really crisp display, and it really does make a difference having a larger screen when you're looking at such small components. The 3D, well, it blew me away. I've not seen anything else quite like that. I've looked at a lot of digital microscopes, and this is quite unique. It's a really good way of identifying part numbers, as we've seen, in really difficult spaces, and it gives you just a unique view of your PCB. It's like exploring them in a whole new way. If the 3D is not for you, or it gets a bit much, you can just turn that off and use it in 2D mode, and I don't think you're really sacrificing anything in terms of image quality if you do that. The ability to hook it up to other screens like your PC and your HDMI screen, that's awesome as well. You can run 3 screens at once and you can get a really clear image of what you're doing. No more problems identifying resistor color codes. Fantastic, even I could see that. And of course, as we've seen with Tomlov, the flex arm stand is fantastic. It gives you so much space to work. Look, you've got infinite space underneath. You can raise it up, lower it down to get right on in amongst the components. You've got plenty of room for soldering, working on your PCBs and looking at boards. You've got those gooseneck lights, which I wasn't too sure about at first, but actually they're pretty darn good. Now on the flip side, what I would like to see is perhaps some more functions on the remote control for things like the flipping of images and the changing the effects on the microscope. I know you can do that in the menu, but it is ever so slightly clunky, and I found it a bit counterintuitive using left and right to go up and down. Maybe that's just me. Your mileage may vary, but I still think this is a really good digital microscope, even aside from the 3D. If you take the 3D out of it, I would still rate this as a good digital microscope. Add in the 3D, I think it's pretty amazing. It's unique. You'd be hard pressed to find anything else like this. So there you have it, the Tomlov TM3k-3D microscope. Well, there you go. I've taken a look at a lot of different digital microscopes on the channel, and I've got to say this one is totally unique. I've not come across anything else like this with this 3D mode. It does give you a whole new perspective on your board. If you'd like to pick one up for yourselves, I'll leave the link in the video description down below so you can go take a look. And big thanks to Tomlov for sending over this TM3K for me to take a look at. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, taking a look at this rather unique digital microscope. I'll be back soon with some more tech related videos, but in the meantime, take care and I'll see you on the next one.